And what do you plan to do with this information if I bring it back here?
Same drill. They've been dealing under the table, and I'm gonna stop them. I'm gonna find my weapons and destroy them.
Tony, you know that I would help you with anything, but I cannot help you if you're gonna start all of this again.
There is nothing except this. There's no art opening. There is no benefit. There is nothing to sign. There is the next mission and nothing else.
Is that so? Well, then I quit.
You stood by my side all these years while I reaped the benefits of destruction. And now that I'm trying to protect the people that I put in harm's way, you're gonna walk out?
You're gonna kill yourself, Tony. I'm not gonna be a part of it.
I shouldn't be alive. Unless it was for a reason. I'm not crazy, Pepper. I just finally know what I have to do.
Disney Plus's 6-episode series Ironheart, following the character Riri Williams, has now fully released on Disney Plus, following a very long 1 week in between the first episode and the finale. Ironheart has been receiving a lot of criticism online. Now, it's always easy to claim what's bad about a movie or show with the usual allegations of DEI, wokeness, intersectional feminism, or an over-inclusion of the message. I know it's easy to do this because I did it in my first video where I broke down the first 3 episodes. Now, don't get me wrong. Ironheart is riddled with all of these problems that can lead to a downfall of a show, but those are far more shallow level and anyone can pick those out. What I wanted to do was take an analytical look at what makes Ironheart and by proxy the main character Riri Williams bad and led to the show's failure, to answer the question, what went wrong with Ironheart? So a bad story and character may not be explicitly obvious, and you may not know immediately why it's bad, but you can tell that it's bad when you're watching it. In my opinion, the best way to actually figure out what went wrong with this show was to compare it with a past success. And with Ironheart, I felt like there was no better comparison to make than with 2008's Iron Man. So throughout this video, I'm going to be comparing and contrasting Tony Stark and Riri Williams' characters and how their stories align. In order to kick this off, we need to ask ourselves what the goal of this show should be. A quick Google search reminds us that Riri Williams and Ironheart is in fact supposed to be a superhero, despite what the writers of the show seem to think. When writing the story of a superhero, it is often best to stick to the core principles of the hero's journey. All the superhero movies and shows that we all love do this in some manner, although it may not be an exact recreation. So, because this show and 2008's Iron Man are supposed to be the quintessential origins of these characters, the most important thing to get right is the main character and their writing. Iron Man is a perfect example on how to write and develop a superhero properly and efficiently. As amazing as the performances are in Iron Man, what makes the movie a good movie and the character of Tony Stark a good character is how Tony Stark grows and develops throughout the story. Iron Man does a great job of quickly and efficiently introducing us to the traits, flaws, and morals that make up Tony Stark. With a brief 2-minute expositional scene, we learn everything that we actually need to know about the background of Tony Stark as a character.
American patriot. Even from an early age, the son of legendary weapons developer Howard Stark quickly stole the spotlight with his brilliant and unique mind. At age 4, he built his first circuit board. At age 6, his first engine. And at 17, he graduated summa cum laude from MIT.
This is already a parallel with the main character of Ironheart, Riri Williams, who throughout the show we learned was a genius as a child and eventually got into MIT at the age of 15. Now, this brief expositional scene also serves as an opportunity to showcase some of Tony's flaws, because this video is playing an award ceremony that Tony decided to skip so he could go gamble and drink in a casino in Vegas. So, within the first 10 minutes of the movie Iron Man, not only do we already know the background of Tony Stark, but we also know a couple of his flaws that you can pick up based on the context of the scenes around them. Here's what we know about him. He's selfish because he skipped this award show, leaving his friend and mentor out to dry. He's careless. He's on a casino floor drinking and gambling large amounts of money, and he just doesn't care because he has unlimited money, so why would he need to care? Also, on the fact that he's careless, he doesn't even give 2 cents about the award Rhodey is trying to give him that he was presented with. In fact, he gives the award away, and so he can go back to gambling. Then, out in the parking lot, we get more insight into his character when Christine Everhart, the reporter, tries to come up and interview him. Tony, on the other hand, won't even acknowledge her existence until his head of security, Happy, tells him that she's in fact hot. Now, Normally I'd refer to ignoring reporters as red-pilled and based from Tony Stark, but obviously in the context of this scene, it's supposed to show us how arrogant and self-centered Tony really is. Through his conversation with Christine, we get a base layer of Tony's mindset and morals, where he explains that his weapons are saving lives, and he tries to justify what he's doing, saying he's working towards the greater good. As all of these flaws continue to build up and pile onto each other, we watch as Tony becomes disrespectful to the three people who still matter to him the most: his best friend Rhodey, his most trusted assistant and ally Pepper, and his mentor Obadiah. Now all of this, where we get his flaws, his morals, some character traits, and background information about him, happens within the first 10 minutes of the movie. Already, within 10 minutes, we are shown he's a morally corrupt character who thinks that what he's doing is right. He's egotistical, he's self-centered, he's reckless, careless, selfish, and he takes his friends for granted. Now, let's contrast this with Ironheart and Riri Williams. We already established how some of the character traits and background are similar for Riri and Tony, and also some of the flaws do line up. Riri is selfish. We can see this how she handles the Natalie AI and how she partakes in her criminal acts. Riri is also careless with her acts. This can be seen with how she endangers her friends, her mom, and the guy who is helping her out in Ezekiel. Riri is self-centered, wanting everyone to tell her how amazing she is and trying to build her up, and in fact trying to gaslight them into thinking that they're trying to break her down, when really she's just screwed up. This trait can be shown in the opening scene with her argument with the employee at MIT who's telling her she's expelled. The biggest flaw for Riri is how self-righteous she is. Someone who is self-righteous is someone who is convinced of their own moral superiority, often with an air of smugness or intolerance towards others. Self-righteousness is the most glaringly obvious character flaw for Riri Williams. Tony Stark does also have this character flaw with how he justifies selling weapons and thinking it's for the greater good. Riri's self-righteousness is how she is seen justifying her acts of selling projects to other students in the opening monologue of the show, with how she is stealing money to help fund her suit, and in her opening monologue she justifies these acts, saying that because Tony Stark wouldn't be Iron Man if he wasn't already a billionaire. So, here are character flaws for Riri Williams and Tony Stark. Flaws in a character are good to have. Characters having flaws allows for characters to make mistakes that they can learn from and allows them to grow and develop. But, as we will come to learn here soon, only one of these characters actually changes and develops from these flaws. The very opening scene of Iron Man shows us the first of 3 inciting incidents that turn Tony Stark into a superhero. The first of these incidences is where he watches as Stark Industries weapons kill American soldiers that he was riding with in a Humvee. After this, he's captured by the 10 Rings, and he sees that the 10 Rings have a lot more Stark Industries weapons that they can use, and they're asking him to create Jericho missiles. Also, once he's captured, we are introduced to one of the most important characters in the development of Tony Stark, Yinsen. Yinsen in this movie serves as Tony Stark's Uncle Ben, so to speak. Yinsen motivates Tony into using his mind for true good, so Tony develops a plan on how to escape. Through his time building the suit in the cave, Tony's interactions with Yinsen open his eyes to how his flaws actually impact the world around him. Over the course of a couple minutes worth of scenes, we watch as Tony builds the miniature arc reactor and begins to change as a character. He is already more personable, where he asks Yinsen about his family and his life before he was captured. Tony is already being more empathetic with Yinsen than he was through the entire opening flashback of this movie. Yinsen has a line that hits Tony very deeply, where Yinsen describes him as a man who has everything and nothing.
So you're a man who has everything and nothing.
Then, once the suit is complete, we get to see more of how Tony's mindset has changed when he's willing to sacrifice himself so that Yinsen can escape. This also shows us that Tony has heroic qualities deep inside him, he just needs to learn how to overcome his character flaws to find them. It's at this point in the movie we get our second inciting incident into making Tony Stark a superhero, where he has to watch as Yinsen bleeds out in front of him. We can see Tony's gratitude for Yinsen sacrificing himself so that Tony can live, and Yinsen tells Tony not to waste it.
Thank you for saving me. Don't waste it. Don't waste your life.
This is the point in the movie where Tony's self-righteousness has completely collapsed. He already had the right mindset and intentions with how he was developing weapons. He wanted to help people and work towards a greater good, but he had never realized what his weapons were doing that could hurt people until now. Tony is then rescued by Rhodey, and now just 40 minutes into Iron Man, we already have a completely changed and grown character. Now, in comparison, the first 40 minutes of Riri Williams' journey is far less impactful. Riri's flaws are already on full display in the first first episode when we watch as she steals her suit from MIT. Riri is less dismissive of her best friend Xavier when compared to Tony and Rhodey's interactions in the opening of the movie, but that being said, she is far more focused on developing and improving her suit, but not to help people. She's doing it just because she can. Riri knows, though, that she needs money to fund building her suit. So she then decides to knowingly join a group of criminals and steal money. Then, to end off the episode, Riri creates her AI partner of Natalie. Natalie is a digital recreation of her best friend who died a couple years before in a drive-by shooting. So, already through the first 40 minutes of Ironheart compared to the first 40 minutes of Iron Man, you can see how much less character development has happened between the two characters. Obviously, with Iron Man being a much shorter movie, more development has to happen through a rapid time. So, we can give Ironheart maybe a brief pass and hope that more development happens as the episodes go on. For now, let's jump back to Iron Man. So, when he returns to the US, Tony announces that Stark Industries is going to stop making weapons for the US government. This is Tony sacrificing billions of dollars worth of military contracts simply because it's the right thing to do. Then, after this press conference, Tony has an argument with Obadiah Stane, which represents his old mindset battling with his new mindset.
We're a weapons manufacturer.
Bobby,
Tony.
I don't want a body count to be our only
That's
legacy.
what we
That's
do.
it.
We're ironmongers. We make weapons.
It's my name on the side of the building.
And what we do keeps the world from falling into chaos.
Not based on what I saw. We're not doing a good enough job. We can do better. We're going to do something else.
Like what? You want us to make baby bottles?
I think we should take another look into arc reactor technology.
Throughout the next few scenes, we watch as everyone in Tony's life tells him he should go back to making weapons. Instead of listening to them, Tony begins to work on his new suit of armor. As Tony's developing his suit, we watch as he has to fail multiple times before he finally has success. When people try to talk him out of what he's doing, he finally says he's being responsible and taking accountability. We also watch as Tony learns from the mistakes he makes and improves upon them. This can be seen with the icing and power problems he uncovers early in his testing. Now, comparing that story with Riri, Riri has all of the intelligence in the world according to the writers. Riri decides to use her intelligence and inherent gift not to help people but to create armor so she can help rob people. This leads to her witnessing as the Hood shoots an innocent security guard and it's her fault. This really should serve as an inciting incident into making Riri into a hero. It does not, because at the start of the next episode, we see as Riri no longer feels bad about the security guard getting shot as she's partying with the rest of the gang as they throw their money around. Once again, looking at this on a writing level and comparing this to Tony Stark, we never actually see Riri fail when creating her armor. She never actually has any failures when developing, and any mistakes we do see made are usually as a cause of something else and not her own doing. Thus, she has no chance to actually overcome any adversity when making her armor. So comparing the feel of Tony Stark trying and failing multiple times before succeeding with his armor to Riri Williams finding immediate success when creating her armor, it feels as though the armor is just complete because the script says it's so, and not because the character actually struggled to do it. Now it's time to wrap up Tony's journey from a normal, flawed human to a true hero. We get the third and final inciting incident of the movie, where Tony learns that his mentor and he thought trusted partner, Obadiah Stane, was actually selling weapons to the Ten Rings terrorist group under the table. This triggers Tony's heroic acts, and we get one of the best fight scenes in MCU history. Tony's heroic act of helping the innocent villagers and saving people shows us the true transformation of his character, where he chooses to selflessly put himself in harm's way simply because it's the right thing to do. The scene from the opening of this video shows Tony's mindset change and how he's changed as a character over the last hour and 25 minutes of screen time. Tony Stark still has character flaws because nobody is perfect, but he doesn't let those flaws get in the way of himself being a hero.
And what do you plan to do with this information if I bring it back here?
Same drill. They've been dealing under the table, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to find my weapons and destroy them.
Tony, you know that I would help you with anything, but I cannot help you if you're going to start all of this again.
There is nothing except this. There's no art opening. There is no benefit. There is nothing to sign. There is the next mission and nothing else.
Is that so? Well, then I quit.
You stood by my side all these years while I reaped the benefits of destruction. And now that I'm trying to protect the people, that I put in harm's way, you're gonna walk out?
You're gonna kill yourself, Tony. I'm not gonna be a part of it.
I shouldn't be alive. Unless it was for a reason. I'm not crazy, Pepper. I just finally know what I have to do.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
Back to Riri's heroic journey, the second heist should serve as another inciting incident into Riri's character development of turning her into a hero, because it's in this heist where Riri causes the death of cousin John as a manner of self-preservation. This, and getting Zeke arrested and blamed for her crime, should cause a mindset change in her character to help push her towards being a hero. And it's at this point in the show where Zeke explicitly tells us exactly what Riri's flaws are.
You're just a selfish kid who can't take any responsibility for herself. You lie, you cheat, you manipulate. You'll do anything you can to save yourself, even if that means hurting other people in the process.
It feels like, since the writers know exactly what her flaws are, this should lead to her developing and trying to overcome those flaws. But it's clear that's not the goal of this, because with the next scene, the writers actually have the character of Xavier explicitly tell Riri that there is no such thing as good and bad, and those terms are subjective, meaning that there's no reason for her to attempt to overcome her flaws, because subjectively, she's not good or bad.
Good, bad, the words don't really mean anything. It's all depending on who's labeling you.
Then, after a few more scenes, we get what should be the largest inciting incident into Riri Williams' story and the best chance at character growth we've had through this show. Because the character of Natalie, who is dead, is not only her best friend, but was also the little sister of Xavier. So, Xavier sees his dead sister in the form of Riri's AI Natalie. And, rightfully so, Xavier is horrified at the thought that Riri would use his dead sister's likeness as her own AI personal assistant. And he tells her that she had no right to do this. Alright, let's just real quick talk about how messed up this concept is. So, imagine. Let's just imagine this for a second. After the Thanos snap, right, where we see Tony Stark hold Peter Parker as he turns to dust. Let's say that Tony, instead of coming to terms with this death, instead decides to create an AI personal assistant that looks, talks, and sounds exactly like Peter Parker. This is already sounding pretty messed up when you describe it like this. But then let's say he goes to Aunt May. Now, I know in the MCU, Aunt May was technically snapped away during this too, but let's say she's not. So Tony goes to Aunt May with his personal assistant of her dead nephew in AI form. I'd imagine Aunt May would probably be pretty freaked out at seeing her dead nephew being used as an AI personal assistant to Peter's friend and mentor, Tony Stark. The best chance for Riri to grow as a character would be to accept that yes, her AI is in fact an amazing creation because of how much it looks like Natalie. But it's inherently bad and borderline psychotic to create this, and it's not actually her best friend, even though it looks like her. She needs to let the past be the past and accept that Natalie is gone, but she can work towards making Natalie's life mean something. The show itself feels like it comes to the same conclusion, because Riri is told by Natalie that she can't just box out her emotions and try to forget them because she needs to always remember the good memories. Like I said, this is Riri's best chance at character development, admitting that creating Natalie is a mistake and accepting that she needs to delete it. Instead, she says to Natalie, "You're a glitch, but you're my glitch."
What are you doing? We don't do that here.
Doubling down on her horrific reanimation of her dead best friend and Xavier's little sister, who is her current alive and real best friend. And it's also at this point that Riri decides that she needs to stop Parker, not because Parker is robbing and hurting innocent people, but because Parker is going to come for her, so she has to stop him. This is not like Tony Stark at all. Were Obadiah and the Ten Rings trying to kill Tony Stark? Yes. But that's not why Tony decided to try and stop them. He did it because the Ten Rings and Obadiah were hurting and killing innocent people. His goals were selfless in nature, whereas Riri's were selfish. Then we get the most confusing part in this show and maybe any other show I've seen, where the superhero, the hero of the story, Riri Williams, quite literally decides to make a deal with the devil to bring back her dead best friend AI. Now, this comes off that the writers of the show seem to think that this is a heroic sacrifice of Riri giving up her soul so her best friend can live. But even the show itself can't grow because Riri did this for selfish reasons. Because when we see Natalie is back, Riri doesn't think it's the real person. Riri wanted her AI back because she immediately tells Natalie to run diagnostics. So she wanted selfishly her AI personal assistant to come back to life instead of her best friend. So she sold her soul to the devil for an AI personal assistant. That's the end of the Ironheart show. A character who is riddled with flaws such as arrogance, selfishness, and self-righteousness, who not only don't change by the end of the story, but double down on those flaws, is not how you tell the story of a hero. In fact, in most stories, it's how you tell the story of a villain. If Ironheart was a villain origin story, the writers did a pretty decent job of developing the villain, Riri Williams. Unfortunately, due to our quick research, we know that Riri is actually supposed to be a superhero. So, that actually means that the purpose of the show failed, and that is actually what went wrong with Ironheart. Thanks for watching.